Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, March 26th, 2024. This is live stream 1037. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I will usually pontificate on certain subjects having to do with our hobby. But we are certainly not invested in any mental heavy lifting by any stretch of the imagination, just hanging out, having some fun. So tonight, I am actually going to roll out a little bit of a change in the format. So I am actually going to have a topic of discussion, which will already be floating around out there before the show starts. Usually, it's just based on what's going on in chat, maybe something that's going on in the news that day or over the past few days. So you will actually have an opportunity to see what the topic of discussion will be for the show normally. I can't say that there's always going to be a topic of discussion, but we'll see what we could do. So tonight, I am going to share 10 ways that the old school Renaissance style of role-playing games might be perfect for you. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about that in just a bit. But of course, I should mention, when you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live stream, there is chat available. Now, it's not on screen, so it's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And normally, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. But I am going to take a peek here. Now, I am going to see if I can change that during the stream itself. I don't know if I can or not, but I am going to take a look here. And it appears that I can't. Because I was going to drop it down that you had to be a subscriber for at least 10 minutes. Because I know there are some live streams out there who happen to do that. But it doesn't look like I can do that while I'm streaming. So I will do my best to remember that for tomorrow. Fingers crossed. But I got to be honest, I've had just absolutely terrible past 4 days. I'll talk a little bit about that after we do the news and before we get into tonight's topic. But I got to be honest, it's been shitty. It has just been absolutely shitty. Anywho, let's see who we've got in chat tonight. We've got, first out the gate, the madman himself. That's right. Friend of the show and chat moderator, the madman is with us, as is Matthew Blackwell, Jose Fernandez, Jarl Javi, Martin 7W. Gerlin is also here. And I see Kevin King and Russell Higgins are chiming in, as are Kev Reed, Pete Drakulich, Kathy Evans, and Matthew Constantine. And hopefully I did not miss anybody there. And I will also take a guess that the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is also lurking in the shadows. She also happens to be another of our chat moderators. Very nice. Very nice. Welcome, everybody. Make yourself at home. Let's jump on into the news, because teeing off this spring is the Tabletop Golf Association Big Box Family Edition. I've got the skinny. The Table Golf Association, TGA, is the first dexterity game that allows you to design and play your own golf course. Using two-sided cardboard terrain tiles, you decide the layout of the course and make it as easy or difficult as you choose. The game comes with a tee box and several different holes. You complete the course by adding tiles that include roughs, sand hazards, trees, water hazards, and a cliff, as well as fairway tiles. The game includes 4 balls that are basically mini shuffleboard pieces that you must flick from tee box to hole while trying to avoid the hazards, just like in real golf. If you do hit into the hazards, each one carries its own unique mechanism to replicate the challenges of real golf. For example, hitting into the sand means you must hit your next shot using the thumb of your non-dominant hand. Each hazard also limits the distance you can hit your next shot. The game also includes a weather die and spinner that must be rolled before each shot to determine the wind speed and direction. Golf Pro player cards, which players can choose or deal out randomly, each have a different ability players can use once per hole. Whoever has the lowest score after the final hole is the winner. TGA can be played solo, one-on-one, in teams, or as a league. The Table Golf Association's motto is "Go big or go home." So you can really go big now with this Big Box Family Edition, which comes with 79 double-sided heavy-duty cardboard terrain tiles to build and play the course of your dreams. Table Golf Association Big Box Family Edition is for 1 to 8 players, ages 10 and up, plays in 30 to 120 minutes. Obviously, that's going to depend on the number of players you've got. And it will carry an MSRP of $119.99 when it hits stores later this spring. Should also point out that there are a variety of different editions that you can pick up. You do not have to go for the Family Edition Big Box for the 120. You can go with smaller boxes, too, that have fewer tiles. There's also a Pro Edition where the tiles are made of wood. I don't think there's a Pro Edition of this big box, though. Not sure. Not sure. I got to say, this looked kind of interesting. I don't really share much news about dexterity games. But, hey, if you enjoy golf, but just don't get out to the links much, or if you enjoy golf, but you're terrible at it, this might be for you. So there you've got that. And yes, Sarah D is with us tonight. So good to see you. So Kevin King says, tipsy C-suite executives not included. No, they are not. You can provide your own, I'm sure. Christopher Lundgren and Kevin R. Smith are joining us in chat. Good to see you both. On to some role-playing game news. Doctor Who, The Secrets of Scaravor is now out in print and PDF. And I've got the latest from Cubicle 7 Games. In the time before humanity, even before the rise of Gallifrey, Scaravor was imprisoned for its crimes. Last of a long-dead species, it slumbered, sending its influence out into the stars. Yeah, must be related to Great Cthulhu, eh? Now it seeks to rise again to extend its evil dominion over the galaxy. The Secrets of Scaravore is a collection of 4 new adventures that can be played as standalone episodes or as a series of connected stories that lead the characters to the Wild West and distant worlds, encountering Draconians, Solarians, Zygons, and more. Oh my! Or maybe I should have said it like, oh my. Before finally facing, that was a terrible George Takei. Yes, I know. Before finally facing the terrifying Scaravore itself, discover the dark secrets of a technology-advanced paradise occupied by seemingly prehistoric people, and unwind the tragic plot of a Dalek plague in Paradise Lost. Marooned on a strange planet where advanced technology doesn't work, your Team TARDIS will have to unravel the mysteries of an apparently magical medieval society and solve an interplanetary diplomatic crisis in a kind of magic. It's a kind of magic. Travel the Oregon Trail with a wagon train filled with refugee aliens in Westward Bound and protect their secrets from a sect of deadly bounty hunters. And probably the Mormons. Buried deep beneath the streets of modern-day London, a nightmarish creature stretches its malign influence across space and time. Only a team of terrific time travelers can stop it in the mandala of Scaravore. The 110-page Doctor Who The Secrets of Scaravore hardcover with PDF. If you order it from Cubicle 7 Games or one of their partners, carries an MSRP of $34.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. Sweet, very nice, very nice. This corresponds with the new series of Doctor Who, which is now arriving. Did it hit already? Did it already premiere, or is it premiering this week? For some reason, I thought it might have premiered over the weekend. And it's funny because there's a lot of discussion that people in the UK are not pleased because the episodes are premiering at something like 2 a.m. their time. Well, that's what happens. It's Disney Plus now. It's that Disney money. So now it premieres on Disney Plus, I do believe. I do believe. And then it follows up on BBC. Popper Knight is with us in chat. Says, if I can get another student enrollment by April 1st, they'll probably also grab CM1, Test of the Warlords. They have a copy of CM9, Legion of Blood on the way. They cannot wait. So they are talking about, if I remember correctly, I think those are D&D modules. Are they second edition? I think they're second edition. I don't know. I bet you I could probably scroll back through the chat and find out. So Popper Knight says they need some high-level idea fodder. So Chris Lundgren asks if anybody knows a good pirate RPG besides the Morkborg. I know, I won't say it the way I use. Oh, no, I will say it the way I usually do. Morkborg. Yes, Seven Seas, second edition. That's for Chaosium. I mean, it's a bit fantasy, but you can trim some of that out, but it's not heavy into it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Kevin R. Smith saying 7th Sea, second edition. There you have it. Mr. Verloc is joining us in chat. Might be a first-time visit for them. I don't recognize the nickname. Says, OSR is the only way to go. Yes, and we'll be talking about it after the news. Next news piece. Paizo Inc. has teamed up with Humble Bundle for a spectacular Pathfinder bundle. That's right, it features Guns of Elkinstar. I got the deets on the deal. Introduce firepower to your Pathfinder campaign. Whether you're new to Pathfinder 2nd Edition or well acquainted with the grandeur and mystery of Golarion, endless adventure awaits with this bundle. On top of the core rulebook and bestiary required to run this iconic fantasy tabletop role-playing game, you'll get a host of source books, adventures, and more. Snag a physical edition of the Pathfinder Guns and Gears rulebook, which brings all manner of newfangled wonders to Golarion, like the Inventor and Gunslinger classes, and the Mechanized Automaton Ancestry. You'll also get the entire Outlaws of Elkinstar adventure path. It's a 3-parter, in case you didn't know that, which is also playable on the Foundry virtual tabletop. Pay what you want for all of this and help support charity with your purchase. Now, you can grab everything, including that physical edition of Guns and Gear, although you do have to pay shipping, for a $40 or more donation. And I should point out, supplies are limited of the physical book. So keep that in mind. I do believe you can get all the rest, including the PDF of Guns and Gear. Off the top of my head, I seem to recall it's $30 for that. But I say it all the time. If you are interested in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, now keep in mind, this is not remastered. But the reality is, remastered mainly just filed off the open game license. There's some tweaks, yes, there are, but there aren't huge changes. So this is a phenomenal way for you to get into Pathfinder without spending much money at all. These savings will run through April 11th, and your purchase happens to support the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. So you can enjoy an excellent fantasy role-playing game. I think Pathfinder 2nd Edition is very well done. May not be for everybody. It's crunchy. It's not necessarily Mathfinder as people like to portray it as, but just as much math in 5th edition D&D. But it is not everybody's cup of tea because it is relatively crunchy. But I say it all the time. I can't think of another fantasy role-playing game that gives you as many options to customize your character as you find in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So a fantastic deal. Got a few more people popping on into chat. Perkins Dearborn is joining us once again. Good to see you. Mr. Verlock says howdy. Howdy to you too. They say, love your channel. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for taking some time out to pop in and hang out with us. Good to see you. And we've got Heldane 616. Also, I believe might be a first-time visitor with us. Thank you for joining us. W Forge is here too. Good to see you. So it looks like we've got a pretty nice chat rocking and rolling already. So let's move on to my next news piece. Now arriving in stores from Mongoose Publishing is the Traveler World Builder's Handbook. And who do you think has the skinny on this? The World Builder's Handbook provides a complete tool set for expanding a world or star system into a fully realized place to know and explore. It includes procedures for determining the type and location of a system's significant stars and worlds, an expansion of main world generation, and rules for determining the physical and social characteristics of the star system's other worlds. This handbook is both comprehensive and modular, with procedures designed to allow the referee to focus on the important aspects of a world or system's characteristics. The World Builder's Handbook includes knowledge gained from the thousands of exoplanetary systems discovered and covers habitable and hostile worlds, moons, gas giants, twilight worlds, and guidelines for the referee to describe what travelers can see in the skies above these worlds. It allows a referee to create star systems from scratch or expand existing profiles to refine a world's character. Also included are checklists, forms, examples, and the procedures and equipment used by the Imperial Interstellar Scout Service to survey and record information in the charted space universe with a glossary of astronomical terms. The 256-page hardcover with PDF is now in stores, carries an MSRP of $49.99, or grab just the PDF alone for $29.99 over at Drive-Thru RPG. Nah. I always like to see new Traveler stuff come out. We're going to talk a little bit about the Final Four. No, I'm not talking about basketball Final Four. I'm talking about the Gaming Gang March tabletop role-playing game Madness Final Four. It is down to who I thought it would come down to, and the voting is still open. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But I'm going to wrap up the news tonight because the open playtest materials for the Daggerheart role-playing game. Yes, you were wondering, am I going to talk about this at all? I will. The open playtest materials are out. They're available from Darrington Press. Here's the scoop. When it's time for the game mechanics to control fate, players roll one hope die and one fear die. Both are 12-sided dice, which will ultimately impact the outcome for your characters. This duality between the forces of hope and fear on every hero drives the unique character-focused narratives in Daggerheart. In addition to dice, Daggerheart's card system makes it easy to get started and satisfying to grow your abilities by bringing your character's background and capabilities to your fingertips. Ancestry and community cards describe where you come from and how your experience shapes your customs and values. Meanwhile, your subclass and domain cards grant your character plenty of tantalizing abilities to choose from as your character evolves. Craft your unique character through the cards you choose and the story you tell, and become the hero you want to be. These playtest materials contain PDFs of a quick start adventure, plus 5 pre-generated characters, the full draft core rules. Yes, you heard that correctly, the full draft core rules. Print-ready card sheets for your character options, ancestry, community, and subclass, as well as your abilities. Those are the domain cards. Character sheets for each class: Bard, Druid, Guardian, Ranger, Rogue, Seraph, Sorcerer, Warrior, and Wizard. Player and Game Master references, and more. The Daggerheart playtest materials are available absolutely free, and you can find those over at Drive-Thru RPG. Took a little peek. I did not dive in too deeply, but I was taking a peek at the playtest materials. There's quite a bit there. There really is, obviously enough. It's not everything, but they are giving you the core rules. I like the concept of having cards to have everything for your character at your fingertips. We have seen that with Dreams and Machines from Modifius Entertainment. That is a prime example of a game that your character is just made up of all this stuff on cards, which makes things pretty easy. So pretty sweet, pretty nice. And it is absolutely free. So if you are curious, as opposed to, some people out there are like, oh, this is going to be the most fantastic thing ever. And other people are saying, oh, this is absolute hot garbage. Find out for yourself. It's free. It won't cost you a dime. All right. So Travis Williams points out, Daggerheart doesn't appeal to them at all. It's interesting looking. I will say that much. Like I said, I did not take a deep dive into it. I did not read through it. But it is nice to see that at least it appears they are trying to create something different. Now, I got to be honest. I don't know if this is utilizing sort of that same mechanical setup as Candela Obscura? Because remember, I haven't taken a look at that. But I could have swore, I thought I remembered it uses 12-sided dice. So it might. I don't know. I do not know. So that is it for the news tonight. Just taking a quick peek to see if anybody new has popped into chat. I see Coco B is with us. Very nice to see Coco B. I'm not sure if I said hello to Coco B a little earlier or not. In case I didn't, best, of course, that I say hello again. So there is some discussion of Easy D6. I've heard good things about it. And yes, Perkins Dearborn says, DM Scott has cool ideas. He plays with his 2 daughters, so he wants an easy mechanic. I don't blame you. I certainly do not blame you if you're playing with younger players that you would be looking for something relatively simple or rules light to enjoy yourself. I'm sure the kids don't necessarily need to sit there min-maxing everything. I'm sure that's not in their interests. So that is the news for tonight. Of course, I've mentioned Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I will get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up to help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. And have to say, big thank you to Joshua Edwards, who has recently popped on in and made 2 not small donations. It is much appreciated. I appreciate all of you using the banner ads and or stopping by paypal.me. The Gaming Gang. Thank you very kindly. So tonight, I'm going to talk about 10 reasons why the old school Renaissance might be a perfect fit for you in just a bit. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
He's mean. Who's mean? He's mean.
You mean Mr. Clean?
I mean the new Mr. Clean. He's mean.
What made him so mean?
Dirt. He hates dirt. Watch. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
No other kind of cleaner on the face of the earth cleans like new Mr. Clean. No liquid, no powder, no cleanser, no detergent, no soap, Nothing.
He's mean.
New Mr. Clean, he's mean. He hates dirt.
I love him.
Darling, if I marry you, will you keep me in Wilkins Coffee?
Boy, will this be a soggy romance.
Everyone knows that beautiful hair makes a girl look beautiful.
Beautiful Chrissy has beautiful hair that grows.
This is beautiful Chrissy, the doll with beautiful hair that grows right down to her toes. Woo! Turn the knob and her hair is shorter. Press her tummy and you can make her hair grow and grow and grow right down to her toes. You'll love to brush it and brush it.
He has beautiful hair. She has beautiful eyes. She has beautiful clothes.
Beautiful Chrissy comes in this beautiful dress. But you can get all these other beautiful clothes for her, too, and style her hair to go with them.
Beautiful Chrissy has beautiful hair that grows.
Beautiful Chrissy. She's ideal.
Mr. Clean is gonna fuck that dirt up. Then made love to the ladies. It's like, what the? He's so mean. It's like, okay. And strangely enough, in the late 60s, early 70s, growing hair on dolls was a big deal. It's like, okay. Matthew Constantine says, beautiful Chrissy is here for your soul. What is it? Taki Tina? Wasn't that the one from the Twilight Zone? I'm talking Tina and I'm going to kill you. Omanal is joining us in chat. Good to see Omanal. I think it's been a little bit since we've seen Omanal popping on by. So welcome aboard. All right. We are going to get into the 10 reasons why the old school Renaissance might be perfect for you in just a moment. But I did open the show, if you'd missed this, and I said, boy, the last 4 days have just been shit, to be very honest with you. And, you know, I tell you what's going on. I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. So one thing is, if you follow the show, you know that some scammer had hit my dad's checking account with a bogus check, which couldn't have looked more fake if they had drawn it in crayon. And now I talked to the investigator from his bank, sounding like he's going to have one hell of a time getting those funds back, even though it was another bank that deposited the check. He's going to be out the $4,300 and some dollars. But we are not going to sit and let that happen. One of these days, I might share a story with you about why I'm really not a guy that you fuck with. Let me just say that I helped put an entire industry out of business. Billions of dollars. I was a whistleblower. So one of these days I might tell you the story. But it's a doozy. I'll tell you that much. It is a doozy. So we've got that. And then also, if you follow the show, you also know I had mentioned that Elliot's nephew, Paul, who played games with us for years. I mean, when I talk about the Call of Cthulhu games that we played like in high school and, you know, in our early 20s, stuff like that, Paul was always part of it. And he had gone into the hospital and he had this infection and then he had sepsis and then all these things were going on and they were going to have to remove part of his bladder, which they did. And then it turned out they found cancer. I don't think I got into that. And then it turned out he actually has 2 forms of aggressive cancer. And they figured, okay, well, once he regained some strength, they were going to put him on chemo. And that did not happen. He's not strong enough to go on chemo. So he is actually fading fast. And he's under hospice care right now. And Elliot saw him on Sunday, said it is not good. It is not good. Now, the reality is, I mean, I haven't talked to Paul in 25 years. But I mean, it's a bitch. It really sucks. And not only for Paul, but for his family as well. I mean, it's just awful. So found that out on Friday. So within like a month and a half, it went from he's not feeling good to they don't give him much. They don't expect him to make it through this week. So anyway, that is why I had pretty shitty 4 days. So I gotta be honest. Doing this show makes me feel better. It's one of the reasons why I do this show is because I enjoy it. And the community that we have, as small as it is, brings me joy. So anyway, do not be shocked if I do not do shows next week. Because number one, I was thinking of taking next week off because I usually take a week off every quarter anyway. And seeing that I don't have a show on April 1st, there isn't going to be any April Fools or anything. So I might be taking next week off. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be videos. There's always videos because I have learned to try to record a good number at a time so that I can kind of trickle them out, especially when things happen, you know. So, anywho, thank you for the kind words that folks are sharing. So, thank you very much. It is absolutely appreciated. And like I said, I mean, I feel so bad for Elliot and Elliot's family, and it's awful. It's awful. So, anyway, just taking a look at the kind thoughts that are being shared in chat. So thank you, everybody. So people aren't tuning in to listen to my sob stories, though. As I mentioned early in the show, we're going to try something a little different. So I am going to try to have a topic of discussion for the episodes of The Dispatch, and it will be in the title as well. So, Chris Lundgren says, Eric Tenkar said nice things about your channel recently this week. He was in a live chat there. They were doing a show on James M. Ward and about health issues for our aging part of the RPG world. And there is a lot of it. There is a lot of it. I would have never thought Eric Tenkar even knows who I am. Over at Tenkar's Tavern. That's really wild. It's kind of cool. So once again, everybody, thank you very much for your kind thoughts. And I see some folks can identify with what's going on for Elliot and his family. So it is a part of life. That is the reality to it. And of course, as we get older, it becomes a bigger and bigger part of the reality of life. So, tonight, I am going to share 10 reasons why the old school Renaissance style of role-playing game might be right for you and your players, your group. And with each of these, I am going to share an example of what I consider to be an old school Renaissance game. Now, I just happen to be sharing all fantasy role-playing games. Part of the reason behind that is the OSR is thought of by most people that it ties into the original Dungeons and Dragons or Basic Expert or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So OSR games usually are looked at as coming from that core base of mechanics. So as an example, Traveler has been around for a good long time, since 78-ish, maybe before that. But Traveler is not really considered OSR or games that are built off of Traveler, like the Cerberus engine, isn't that? Is built off Traveler. That's not considered OSR because it's completely different mechanics. It's not mechanically similar to any of those older Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm going to share an example of a fantasy OSR game. Once again, my definition of it, as opposed to people out there, the many growyards out there are like, oh, no, absolutely not. That is not OSR. But I'm not going to argue it. I'm just going to share it. So Kevin R. Smith says it is the Cepheus engine. That's it. I don't know why I was thinking Cerberus. I guess because it sounds more like it'd be a role-play game than Cepheus, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. And yes, Kevin, thank you for pointing out that Candela Obscura is six-sided die-based. Once again, I'm not familiar with the system, but he did point that out. So Chris Lundgren says, what about what they call new SR versus OSR? We're not getting into that tonight because already got a topic. We're diving on in. So first of all, if you like to be able to roll up characters and get to playing the game in 5 to 10 minutes or even less, then you know what? The old school Renaissance might be for you. Because one aspect of most old school Renaissance games is the fact that because they normally have a far higher level of lethality, it tends to be quicker as far as character creation. Because your characters might not last. So you need to roll up characters relatively quickly. So if you don't want to sit around spending hours with your group during session 0, just so everybody can get characters created, well, you know what? The OSR might be your bag. Now, an example of an OSR game which has very quick character creation is Old School Essentials. Now, Old School Essentials is built on Basic and Expert, where the presentation is cleaned up so that you can understand the rules better than you could with the original releases. And everything is located in the one book. So you've got all your core rules, all of your spells, monsters, everything is in this one volume. Now, keeping in mind, this is built on Basic Expert, so you only have the 4 races, you only have the 4 classes, and you do have race as class. And some people don't like that. I got to be honest, I'm not particularly fond of it. I am in Dungeon Crawl Classics, that I don't mind that, because I kind of get a kick out of the halfling being the little luck battery and things like that. So this is a great example of an OSR title, easy to get into, easy to jump into. One aspect of Old School Essentials that I feel could use a bit more added to the book, maybe in the future, would be, how the hell do you actually play the game? Right? Give us some examples of play. You will not find that in Old School Essentials. They also have Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, which still is built on basic expert D&D, but it does bring over a lot of the cool stuff from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So another way that you might find that the Old School Renaissance is for you is if you want to see your character gradually grow in power, where they start off as maybe just a little bit above average, and then they adventure, and over a period of time, we're talking real time, not, well, we played 5 sessions, now you're 20th level now. No, it's an investment in adventuring, because leveling up, your improvement is a far slower process, because you are using experience points. There are no like key moments where it's like, well, we've hit this point in the adventure, now you're this level. No, you're actually using experience points. If you like the idea that your characters aren't super powered to start off with, and that your powers actually come from the various different treasures and magic items that you find, then the OSR might be something you want to take a look at. And of course, we can't talk about the Old School Renaissance without at least referring to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of people still play 1E AD&D. A lot of people still play 2nd edition AD&D, because there aren't that many changes. There really aren't between 2nd edition and 1st edition, except for, okay, now they're getting rid of demons and things like that. But all in all, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is still very, very playable. So that is something to really keep in mind. And of course, it's just a classic. And you can pick up AD&D in PDF. If you want to go onto the secondary market to get used copies, if you don't mind them having some wear and tear, they're not terribly expensive. Something like this, which is actually in pretty good shape, I want to say, now I've had this probably about 4 or 5 years now. I think it was $80, which I know people are like, what? But I wanted it. I wanted the original AD&D books. So I've got that. Another way that you might find that the Old School Renaissance is something that's going to be right up your alley is that you have about 50 years worth of adventuring that you can delve into. So unlike just about any other genre of role-playing game, you have adventures that can relatively easily be ported over to various different OSR systems. So you can take, say, an Advanced Dungeons and Dragons adventure and port it over to Old School Essentials. It's not that difficult. You can port it over to games like Castles and Crusades or Shadow Dark. It's not tough to do. And you have got essentially the entire history of role-playing that you can reach on into the past and game from. And that is, in my opinion, a huge selling point to the old school Renaissance, because you literally have decades of adventures to choose from to bring to your table. So I see there is quite a bit of chat going on. Omen Owl says, it's a very nice copy. My original copy didn't look that good 30 years ago. Perkins Dearborn says they've got all their RPG stuff from 1979 to today. They have many boxes stored with stuff. My friend Scott Weigel, who on occasion will pop in to chat, he's got a lot of stuff from when we were in high school. So I don't know if he still got like the AD&D stuff and things like that. I would take a guess he probably does. But I say it all the time. I wish I had all those goodies that I had from way back in the day. Next, another reason why the OSR might be just right for you is, do you like to see stuff get done in a session of gaming? I mean, more than just one fight. You like to actually get some story in there, get some adventuring done. Maybe you run across some wandering monsters or do some hex crawling, as opposed to spending 3 hours fighting some goblins. Well, you know what? The OSR might be for you. And there was some mention of this, Osric, earlier in chat. And this builds on AD&D. So really what Osric is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons kind of boiled down into one volume. So you don't have a player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual separate. All that info is in here. And it has been stripped of the High Gygaxian language. So yes, reading the AD&D books can sometimes be a bit of a slog. And you might need to have a thesaurus handy or a dictionary handy to understand what's being said. Although the reality is, most of us of a certain age, we know how to figure out the definition of a word by way of context. I don't know if people are that good on doing that anymore. But Osric is really, really well done. And this is certainly for anybody who wants to experience Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but have it make a little more sense than the books sometimes make out. Now, one problem that you have is, as an example, this hardcover, you can't find it now. You can't get it. I don't believe that it's still available as a print on demand. So this was from Lulu, and I think you can still get the soft cover. So you can still get this in soft cover. It is not available, last I heard. It is not available as a hardcover. There is talk that they're looking to kickstart a new edition of Osric, but I have also heard that that is at least a year away, maybe more. So in the meantime, you can pick up Osric. Also important to note, the PDF, absolutely free. That's right. Doesn't cost you a single solitary dime. Another way that the old school Renaissance could be something that's really going to make your heart glad is if you want your success as a player to be determined more by your intuition, how clever you are, figuring puzzles out, kind of getting to the nitty-gritty of what the NPC's real motivations are by picking up on clues and hints, as opposed to just rolling dice. So one huge difference between an old school Renaissance game in a modern role-playing game, such as 5e Dungeons & Dragons and even Pathfinder 2nd Edition, is that players tend to look at their character sheets when they're trying to figure something out. So as opposed to just kind of putting their character in that situation and trying to piece the clues together to figure something out, they take a look at their character sheet looking for, well, do I have a feat for this? Do I have a skill for this? What do I roll? So a great example of that would be in a fantasy setting, in a dungeon delve, disarming traps, finding and disarming traps. In the old school way of doing things, the trap will have some sort of mechanism. So the player will normally, the player who's playing the thief or rogue or whoever's searching and disarming the traps will have an idea of what is the mechanism for that trap. And then they can kind of discuss how they're going to attempt to disarm it, what they would do to try to disarm it. Now, of course, there are skill rolls in OSR games as far as disarming traps. But a lot of times, many game masters out there running OSR games, if the player can provide them with a pretty good way of disarming the trap, they'll just disarm the trap. They will not make the player roll dice. So you've got that. Matthew Blackwell says they checked Lulu. You can still get the Osric hardcover there. Weird, because somebody just mentioned in chat last week that you couldn't get it in a hardcover anymore. So there you have it. You can get it in hardcover. There is also, I did a news piece about this last week. There is a player's handbook for Osric that is a print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG, and it's got full color artwork and things along those lines too. So that might be something that you want to take a peek at. And if I remember correctly, I think that is also free in PDF. Pete Strakulich says Lulu is better than Drive-Thru as far as print on demand. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've had something from Lulu. But I got to say, Drive-Thru RPG has gotten better. They really have gotten better. I have not run across stuff that is fuzzy or anything like that, because I do have, small publishers send me print-on-demand stuff from time to time, and it's usually from Drive-Thru RPG, not Lulu. W. Forge says, yeah, a 10-foot pole was a necessity when searching a dungeon. Yes, because you could use it for many different things. So another example of an OSR game would be Hyperborea. This kickstarted about 2-3 years ago, and this is actually the 3rd edition of the astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. And now it's just called Hyperborea. And I've got to say, this is really, really nicely done. If you are looking for kind of a take on Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, it does have attack matrix. I think it's pronounced matrices, which some people don't care for, because that is going way back old school. But it has subclasses that are really cool. This is a really, really well done OSR role-playing game. So if you are interested in a real kind of swords and sorcery vibe to your fantasy role-playing, or even maybe if you're kind of a fan of like Thundar the Barbarian, but more aimed at like fantasy, then Hyperborea should be on your radar to check out. Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. Double K's in the house. Good to see you, Kabuki Kid. Next up, you might find the OSR to be perfect for you if you like your combat to be fast and deadly, and the stakes always feel higher than you would see, say, in 5e D&D. That's one of the aspects of the old school Renaissance I really like, is that combat is pretty quick. It's dirty. It tends to be pretty lethal. Characters can't just soak hit after hit after hit after hit. Now, I know a lot of people out there, they don't like the squishiness of low-level characters, but that's kind of coming with the territory. That's how the OSR plays. Plus, characters die. Player characters die regularly. So it's more, to me at least, when the players are involved in combat, it means a lot more than, oh yeah, okay, well, yeah, now we're going to fight our way through our 7th wave of goblins now. Boy, we've been at this 8 hours. I wish we'd finally knock off these goblins. But I'm a big fan of that. I like that quite a lot. I tend to run my combat more theater to the mind. So I don't necessarily need a bunch of feats and things like that. And I try to make combat to be far more narrative as opposed to, all right, well, oh, you hit. Oh, 2 hit points. Okay, next. And another really good OSR role-playing game that's got kind of the AD&D feel is Axe, Adventure Conquer King system. And I will point out, I understand the creator is problematic for some people. So keep that in mind. But I do have to point out, this is a really well done OSR fantasy role-playing game. And there is a lot of content out for it. This did successfully kickstart for a 2nd edition, which I think is currently in beta. So I believe it's going to go to the printer soon enough. But if you like domain play, so if you're interested in your characters eventually becoming King Conan, this is certainly one to take a peek at. I got to be honest, I do not like to get into that much detail about the retainers and lands that the characters own and things like that. But if you're interested in that sort of gameplay, then by all means, Axe is certainly a role-playing game that you're going to want to take a peek at. Chris Lundgren is pointing out, For Golden Glory is a great 2nd edition AD&D OSR game as well. Yeah, I've heard it's a pretty decent retro clone of 2nd edition AD&D. Kevin King says they're not familiar with Axe. There's probably an old episode of The Gaming Gang that they should take a peek at. Yes, I did review it. I like it. But once again, people gave me shit because of the author. The author is a fairly conservative right-wing enthusiast. So, but I say it all the time. I share games from creators of all makes and models and stripes. As long as somebody is not like harming people. And I know, yes, words hurt people, but come on, toughen up a little bit. Words aren't going to kill you. So, yeah, I share stuff from all different sorts of creators. So I'm not here to police, the creators, the content creators here, unless it's like, there's a certain creator of a role-playing game that people believe murdered somebody. Well, I don't share info from them, or people who have, sexually assaulted other people, I don't share news items from them. But just because somebody has a different political view is not going to stop me from, and trust me, I share a lot of stuff from people who my political view is 180 from them. But still, I share news pieces and reviews of their games. Perkins Dearborn asks if I remember ICE. Yes, of course. I remember that. Are we talking about Iron Crown Enterprises? They did Middle-earth role-playing. Of course, they did Arms Law, Claw Law, stuff like that. So that really isn't, strangely enough, that's not OSR. Because it's not really built, even though it was released. The original Arms Law, Claw Law, Spell Law, those were released to be used with D&D, but it's really not considered to be OSR. So Pupper Knight says that for Golden Glory is pretty nicely organized, pretty good layout too. I've never had an opportunity to take a peek at it. So I mean, I'd be happy to share a review if somebody sent me a copy of it. I've got no issues with that at all. Anyway, so I owe you an example of a game. And you already know, I really like Castles and Crusades. So with Castles and Crusades, we're looking at a game that is based more on 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons mechanically. So it is it's D20. So really it falls into that whole D20 period. But it has a real old school Renaissance mindset to it. Now, this is the sort of fantasy role-playing game where your characters are going to be pretty unique for a few different reasons. So unlike a lot of OSR games where your character classes, especially lower classes, are pretty standard, and what really sets your characters apart is the gear that they eventually acquire, the spells and things like that. Here, even from the beginning, your player characters are pretty unique. And one thing that I find to be interesting is this does use overcoming a certain number to succeed. So like a difficulty challenge rating. But depending on what attributes you chose to be important to you are going to be easier for your character, even if they were the same class. So if you had a fighter who you decide, well, you know what? I want them to have a high wisdom. They are going to have a far easier time with tasks which would be construed to be wisdom-based than a fighter who doesn't. So I thought that was pretty cool. I like that. I like that quite a lot. And there is a lot of content for Castles and Crusades. And this is another game that you can easily port over Dungeons and Dragons material from AD&D to 3rd edition without even batting an eye. Super, super easy. And of course, Troll Lord Games, they've got a lot of content for this as well. Another way that the old school Renaissance might be a perfect choice for you and your table of gamers is if you like to experience a game where the focus is more aimed at providing you with a certain sort of vibe, as opposed to everybody's a superhero. So as an example, we've got a lot of great OSR games out there that give you the sword and sorcery sort of aspect of fantasy role-playing. So if you're a fan of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories or Kull the Conqueror stories, I happen to be a huge fan of Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories. also Sword and Sorcery. If you like some of the Clark Ashton Smith Sword and Sorcery stories, you will have just a fantastic time with the OSR because there are a lot of games that are designed for that. But there are also games out there that are designed for high fantasy. There are games that are just where you're like, wow, like, holy cow, magic's everywhere and everybody knows magic and there's all these monsters. Well, that's not Swords and Sorcery. That's epic high fantasy. But you've got plenty of options for that as well. But the thing that really sets the OSR characters apart from newer, modern role-playing games is that your characters are not superheroes. Even at higher levels or higher experience, those characters still have various different weaknesses that the player needs to kind of work around, as opposed to, say, 5e Dungeons and Dragons. First level characters are essentially already pretty experienced, because in the old days with a first level character, let's say a D&D, they were, farm boys, farm girls, and then now they're off on, an adventuring career. No, not anymore. Nowadays, like in 5e D&D or 2nd edition Pathfinder, your first level characters already have an adventuring experience behind them. So they tend to be very powerful right off the bat. Once again, we talked about how difficult it can be for dungeon masters out there, at least they claim, to kill off player characters without just, gimping them. So, John Brunhaver is with us in chat. Mark Simpson has also joined us. Hopefully I've said hello to just about everybody who's hanging out. I know I have been talking, showing off different games and things like that. So I probably have missed some folks. Flaming Heron's with us. Good to see you, Flaming Heron. Anyway, if you are looking for more of a Sword and Sorcery vibe, as opposed to a super heroic slugfest, then the OSR might be something you want to take a look at. And I always recommend, if you are not familiar with the old school Renaissance, but you are familiar with, say, 5e Dungeons and Dragons, I always recommend dip your toes in before making the plunge. And the best way that you can dip your toe in doesn't cost you a single solitary penny is to give Basic Fantasy a try. So Basic Fantasy, Chris Gonnerman has been working with this for a long, long time. It is really well produced. You can pick this up essentially at cost over on Amazon. So I think this soft cover here is probably about $8. The hardcover, this is the new 4th edition, which had come out, which essentially all the 4th edition did was shave off all the open game license stuff, like a lot of companies did, right? After that fiasco. So I highly recommend checking out Basic Fantasy. It is a D20 fantasy role-playing game. So if your players are used to playing, say, 5e D&D, they can segue relatively easily into this. And not only are the rules absolutely free in PDF, there are tons of supplements, there are tons of adventures, all available in PDF, all absolutely free. Can't go wrong checking out Basic Fantasy. Out of everything that I'm going to share with you while I'm talking about the OSR, if any of this kind of clicks and you're like, hey, yeah, you know what? I would like to try that out. By all means, take a peek at Basic Fantasy and go from there. Now, I can highly recommend any of these role-playing games that I'm sharing with you. But there is some investment with most of them. The PDFs aren't free. Obviously, the physical books aren't free, but with basic fantasy, kind of dip your toes in. You can kind of check out some of the old school adventures because many of the basic fantasy adventures are homages to old D&D modules. So that's very cool as well. And of course, it's a modern take on the old school Renaissance. If you want to focus on ways to take care of challenges, to get past enemies without always resorting to violence, if you are interested in games where you can achieve your objectives by using creative solutions as opposed to, oh, it moved, kill it, well, you might want to take a look at the old school Renaissance because with combat being so lethal, players have to find ways to not engage in combat every time they turn around. Plus, one aspect of the old school Renaissance that's very important are resources. So your resources are scarce, and hit points are considered to be a resource. So as opposed to modern fantasy role-playing games where it's sort of like, well, just rest. Oh, you got all your hit points back. Oh, all your spell slots are back. That's not happening in old school Renaissance games. Just like wandering monsters in like a dungeon delve. A lot of players who have been around a long time don't realize this. Wandering monsters are a pain in your ass because they gobble up resources, and the way old school Renaissance games have been written, wandering monsters are not supposed to carry treasure. They're not supposed to have magic items or anything like that. So if you waste a lot of time, if you spend too much time making noise or spend too much time in one location, you're probably going to run across a wandering monster or 2 or 10, and they are going to gobble up your precious resources like spells. So you try to avoid combat, and that might mean parlaying with the enemy, talking with NPCs or monsters if they're intelligent, trying to figure out ways, if it's, say, a mindless animal or creature or whatever, trying to find ways to distract it, to get it away from you, as opposed to, all right, I don't know what it is, but let's go kill it. If you're interested in games like that, you're definitely going to want to take a look at the old school Renaissance. And I am going to share a classic here that probably doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. And part of it is right now it's sort of in a state of flux. But I am talking about Tunnels and Trolls. Tunnels and Trolls is a very unique old school Renaissance role-playing game. It is not built the same way as original Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D, Basic Expert, anything like that. It is very unique. It is its own thing. Happens to be an extremely popular fantasy role-playing game in Japan. And the reason behind that is because Tunnels and Trolls only utilizes 6-sided dice. Although at higher levels, I got to be honest, I'm not sure how well it plays at like really high levels because you're rolling like huge, massive handfuls of dice. Although there are rules about kind of trimming that down, but still really nicely done. A very entertaining read, I will tell you that much. And there's a lot of content for Tunnels and Trolls because Tunnels and Trolls is, as far as I understand, the second fantasy role-playing game that came out. And the owner of Flying Buffalo Games back in the day, Rick Loomis, actually coined the term role-playing game. It was not TSR that coined the term. It was Flying Buffalo Games. So really, really nicely done. I got to be honest, though. I don't know how easy it is to find like a physical copy now. I'm pretty sure you can still grab the PDFs. But by all means, I have to say, even though this came out in the 70s, even today, the mechanics of the game feel pretty modern, amazingly enough. But this still does fall into the old school Renaissance because it has that same old school Renaissance mindset. Chris Lundgren says, do you think Tunnels and Trolls is ever coming back in print? I believe it should. It should. Rick Loomis passed away a few years ago, and Flying Buffalo Games kind of fell into almost like a black hole. So nothing was really going on with Flying Buffalo Games. And then it got sold to another group. From there, I don't know. I seem to recall seeing something on Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry, X, talking about how you would see a return of a new print run of Tunnels and Trolls. Now, this is deluxe Tunnels and Trolls. So as you can see, it's pretty thick. There's quite a bit to it. And another really nice aspect of Tunnels and Trolls is there's loads and loads of solitaire adventures. To my knowledge, I think there's at least 20. And they do kind of fall into that, I always say create your own adventure. And I know that was like a copywritten term, but sort of a choose, make your decision, choose your decision sort of role-playing adventures. So they have the numbered entries. So it's like, oh, stab the goblin, turn to page 20. Go look at entry 20. Talk to the goblin, take a look at entry 54. But the thing is, unlike the choose your own adventure kind of stuff, you actually would have like mechanics. You would play like an adventure. So if you had combat, you'd be rolling dice, just using the Tunnels and Trolls mechanics for combat for both the NPCs and monsters as well as yourself. So lots out there as well. There are some really classic adventures for Tunnels and Trolls that are really, to this day, still looked upon very, very fondly. John Brunhaver says, I would think it would be fun to hack the MCDM RPG into an OSR version, but maybe that's just Dungeon World. I got to be honest, I don't really know what Matt Colville's, that is his last name, right? It's Colville? You know me, I'm so busy doing stuff for the channel and for the website. I don't really have time to check out other people's stuff, but I could swear that I think that's his name. I think that's his last name. I haven't had a chance to really take a peek at the role-playing game that did so well on Kickstarter. I know that Kickstarter's over. I would take a guess that there are probably some people who have gotten, or probably the backers have gotten like a beta of it. So I'd be curious. Yeah, I mean, come on. If you follow the channel, I'm willing to give just about any role-playing game a chance. I am more than happy to share news about it. I did share news about MCDM when it was out on Kickstarter. So, I mean, I'm aware of it. It's not, what the hell are you talking about? MCDM. So what is it? Are you an MC? Are you hosting something? Or are you the dungeon master? What is it? I don't get it. Chris Lundgren's also mentioning Iron Falcon, also from Chris Gonnerman. That is an OD&D retro clone. I have it. Cal Venani is with us in chat. I know they've been with us for a little bit, but I did want to say hello. They said MCDM is a 4E clone. Wow, really? Because a lot of people dislike 4E. So, and it won't be out until 2025 or later. That I did know as well. All right. 2 more reasons why the OSR might be perfect for you. Do you like to have characters whose backstories develop through the emergent play around the game table rather than being created in a 4-hour-long character creation 0 session? Then the OSR is for you. Because we already mentioned character creation's really fast. And if you want to have a backstory for your character, by all means, you create your backstory. It's all good. The thing is, the real backstories develop through the adventuring, as opposed to, well, I sat at home and I spent the last 3 days coming up with the backstory for my tiefling rogue. Hey, and if you enjoy doing that stuff, that's great. I'm not trying to tell you that's the bad, wrong fun, because I don't say that. But it's just not for everyone. And a lot of people playing role-playing games don't realize that that's not the only way to go about it. Because back in the day, people's backstories developed from the adventures, from the interplay with the fellow players around the table and their characters. And you had recurring villains that would pop up and be like, oh no, not that guy again. Oh no. Whereas nowadays, it's everybody's playing a character. That's how I kind of see a lot of modern role-playing games, is that it's just, okay, well, I'm playing my character in an adventure, as opposed to we're all going on an adventure with our characters. So quite different. Pete Strakolich says, play your backstory in a level 0 funnel. Oh, we'll get to that. So I've been talking about a lot of games that are just built on older mechanics. They are the OSR, even though some people quibble, like Castles and Crusades. Oh no, it's based on 3rd edition D&D, so it can't be OSR. It's got the OSR mindset. And probably one of my favorite new fantasy role-playing games that really delves deeply into the old school Renaissance is Shadowdark. And I got to say, if you are looking for something that maybe you, as the dungeon master, are trying to maybe do something a little bit different with your players, but they've only played 5e. Well, this does borrow from a lot of 5e mechanics. So you do have the DC that you're looking to meet or exceed, which normally isn't a thing with the OSR. Everything is just laid out really nicely, really concisely. There are a lot of random tables, which is an OSR thing. And the creator, good people. So Kelsey strikes me as being really good people, and you should try to support the content creators, the designers who are good people. But even if she wasn't, as long as she didn't get accused of murdering somebody, right? We talked about this. This is still an excellent game. And very, very easy to port over old adventures to Shadowdark. And stay tuned, because I will have my review of the first 3 issues of Cursed Scroll, which is the Shadowdark zine, in the next week or so. So really like this quite a bit. In fact, I do believe Kelsey was even at GaryCon this past week, which I was not. I was at the Founders and Legends, which I believe Kelsey was at as well. All right, my final reason why the old school Renaissance might be perfect for you is, do you like your game, in essence, to be your game, not the designer's game? And what I mean by that is, one of the core tenets of the OSR is rulings, not rules. So do you enjoy an approach where you and your friends custom tailor the experience to fit what you're looking to get out of a role-playing game, as opposed to sitting there and having the rules lawyer say, well, no, that's not how it's written in the rule book? Well, then guess what? The OSR is probably going to be for you. Because what tends to happen with old school Renaissance games, mechanically, they tend to be relatively simple. Now, they're not all simple, right? There are complexities. And like, as an example, AD&D is kind of fractured in different ways. Whoops, as I bump the mic. So they don't utilize like a single mechanic. There isn't like just a core mechanic that kind of drives much of the action. A lot of times it's all different little things. But with the OSR, they tend to be relatively modular. So if there's a rule that you don't care for or a mechanic that you're not too keen on, you just replace it with something that you like. And the game normally will continue to just purr right along. That is not necessarily the case with modern fantasy role-playing games. Plus, what usually happens is, well, there's no rule for that. So the game master comes up with a decision, and then they sit there and decide, okay, so this is how this is going to work out. And then from there on out, around your game table, that is now a house rule that's going to be utilized. A lot of people love that aspect about the old school Renaissance, is they custom tailor the rules to what they like. So if you like to have a game that's got really crunchy combat, you can do so. And there are systems out there for that as well, but you can easily plug those kind of rules in. Whereas maybe you're playing an OSR title that you like all the mechanics for, but man, the combat's really crunchy. Normally, you can kind of play around with that as well. As far as most modern role-playing games, it's kind of along the lines of, oh no, you're playing it wrong if you don't do this, or if you don't do that. OSR doesn't work like that. You're never playing an old school Renaissance game wrong. So I like that quite a lot. And somebody just threw a super chat up there. Dr. Jinx 313 says, I just want to say thanks for the show. I don't always get a chance to watch, but when I do, it's very entertaining and informative. Keep up the good work, man. Thank you very kindly. Much appreciate the super chat. Very cool. Very nice. So I got one last OSR role-playing game to share with you to wrap up my 10 reasons why the OSR might be a perfect fit for you. And this is a role-playing game that many people argue is not part of the old school Renaissance. And I disagree. And I'm talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics. Dungeon Crawl Classics, if I sum up Dungeon Crawl Classics in one word, it would be gonzo. And I mean that in a good way. So even though this is sort of built on the, I will say basic expert chassis, because we do have race as class. So if you want to be a fighter, okay, you're a fighter. But if you want to be an elf, you are an elf. The magic system itself screams sword and sorcery, because even the lowliest magic user can do what's known as spell burn. And if they want to essentially just toast themselves, they can bust out some really powerful magic. And there's a randomness to the magic. There's a danger to the magic. And I also like the fact that you don't have spell slots. If you fail casting a spell with your spell roll, then you've lost it. Hopefully it wasn't like a critical failure, because that's when really bad things happen. But I also like the fact that magic is dangerous, and utilizing magic over time is dangerous. So there's even a piece of artwork in here that kind of shows like, oh, a new magic user, and then an experienced magic user. And the experienced magic user is all stooped over, and I think they've got like a claw hand. I mean, it's so cool. And there's some really good adventures for Dungeon Crawl Classics, including the 0-level funnels. Some people don't like the funnels because they don't like controlling multiple characters at one time. Because what happens is, in the funnel, most players will have 4, maybe 5 characters to start off with, and they're 0 level. They don't even have a class. They're usually walking around with, okay, so what is the one item that you have? Well, I got a chicken. It's like, oh, well, at least I've got a fork or a pitchfork. But what happens is those characters go through an adventure. It's a short adventure. Funnels tend to be short. They tend to be maybe 1, possibly 2 sessions in length. But they tend to be meat grinders. So at the end of the funnel, those surviving characters become your characters, and they become first level. I think that's a riot. And there are some really good 0-level funnels for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Like I said, a lot of people will argue that is not an OSR game, but I will say that its heart is firmly in the camp of the old school Renaissance. All right, so there you have 10 reasons why I think the old school Renaissance might be a perfect fit for you and your players. So, of course, if you enjoyed this new format where I'm going to share a topic that I will talk about after I do the news on every episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, please let me know in the comments section. If you didn't care for this, go ahead, let me know. Don't be a dick about it, but you can say, yeah, you know what? Yeah. I was in chat. You didn't really respond too much to what was going on in chat, which that will probably be the case if I am doing a topic on each show. So I'm trying to take a peek at chat, but chat is actually zipping by pretty quick tonight. I think we've got quite a few people hanging out. Kabuki Kid says, Poop Collector Level 3, otherwise known as the Gong Farmer. Yes. All right, so on tomorrow's show, I am going to discuss something that might be a little bit controversial, because I'm going to talk about if there's more gatekeeping going on in tabletop gaming now than ever in the past. Because yes, a lot of folks out there like to claim back in the 80s, 90s, whole lot of gatekeeping going on. Whole lot of people wanted to play games, but we kept them out. I don't think that's the case. And the reality is, I think there's way more gatekeeping going on around people's game tables nowadays than there ever were in the past. Like I said, might turn out to be a little controversial. We shall see. But once again, I'm just sharing my thoughts. It's not like, oh, well, I've got, 15 reports that tell me this. Semper Buffo and Shar Aznable were with us in chat again tonight, too. Thank you very much. Shar says gatekeeping now is insane, especially newer players against the older players. Legion of Myth is with us, says the hobby needs more gatekeeping. Kevin King says they're playing a game tomorrow. Very good. Enjoy. Have fun at the game. Don't worry about this stream. You can watch it, whatever. All right, that is it for this time out tonight. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my review of the finale of Season of Ghosts. Yes, To Bloom Below the Web from Paizo Inc. Of course, it's Pathfinder. And if you may have missed it, earlier today, I shared my review of Call of Cthulhu Arkham from my friends over at Chaosium Inc. Just trying to turn my... It's like point back to it. But of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you took part in chat while watching live, big tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, but you're also keeping each other company while I'm sitting there talking about 10 ways that the OSR might be right for you. So yes, I was not as involved with chat as I normally am. And once again, big thank you to Dr. Jinx 313 for a $20 super chat. It is certainly appreciated. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. I will be back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And as always, I hope every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang